Ever since the release of Rune Factory 4 back in 2012, the series has more or less been in a bit of a rocky situation compared to its sister series, Story of Seasons. Neverland went bankrupt, and the team making the Rune Factory games went on to develop the Story of Seasons titles for the better part of a decade, despite Rune Factory 5 already being greenlit. Then, in 2021, almost 10 years later, we finally got our hands on a brand new Rune Factory entry, which led to mixed results. You could definitely see the signs of development hell on this one, but in my opinion, we still got an enjoyable experience that became a really good one once the game hit PC. So, fast forward to 2023 and Marvelous announced not just one, but two Rune Factory games, Rune Factory 6 and the subject of today's review, Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. Before we get going, I wanted to preface that I am playing this game on PC, and my specs will now be displayed on screen so you know how I played the game, and they'll be in the description down below. That said, this game ran very well in the Steamdeck too, and the performance on Switch too, from what I've been told, is comparable. Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma is a spin-off of the mainline Rune Factory series by Marvelous First Studio. And the word spin-off is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. It's more akin to the Kingdom Hearts side entries than what we consider a typical spin-off. You will not find yourself in the familiar lands of Norad in this game, but in the brand new continent of Azuma, part of the eastern lands of this world. If this seems weird for the world, don't worry, the series has been hinting at eastern lands since the first game, with special characters hailing from them. So, this game opens up a whole new door to view the world from a different lens. The game starts out with you having to pick between either Kaguya or Subaru, a priestess or a skilled hunter and hero. From there, the game opens up with one of the most high-budgeted cutscenes I've seen in any Marvelous game in a while. Then your chosen hero awakens with, you guessed it, amnesia in Spring Village, where you have been living for the last several months. It is here where you learn about being an Earth Dancer, the Eastern name for an Earthmate, and begin your quest of reviving the gods of Azuma and find a way to reverse the blight that is plaguing the land. At first glance, Azuma may look like your typical Rune Factory affair, working on the land to grow new crops and materials to befriend villagers and exploring fields and dungeons for additional materials and monsters to befriend. However, things aren't as they would seem. Azuma has a large focus on building up the community around you and using the new system of items known as sacred tools. As you progress the game, you will unlock more sacred tools that will help you in your day-to-day farm work, and help you out with exploring as well. Unlike a lot of games that more or less throw away older tools as you get new ones, you will find yourself constantly relying on these tools to make your job a lot easier, and to provide special attacks in combat, but more on the battle system later. Guardians of Azuma tries to reinvent the wheel on how you will go about your day-to-day farming. In previous Rune Factory entries, you would typically get one dedicated plot of land to use, and would have to rely on the fields found in dungeons for added space to grow specific crops for different seasons. This time around, it's a bit different. There is a town for each one of the 4 seasons, and it will be perpetually that season year-round. The villages are aptly named spring, summer, etc., so there should be no confusion there. So crops for each specific season can be grown year-round once you unlock the respective seasoned village. The villages themselves are where a lot of the new stuff is explored. It seems like each village has a vacancy problem in the chief department, and the people of each one have elected to make Kaguya or Subaru their village chief, meaning you will be in charge of not only farming in the villages, but the actual development of each one too. Yep, you're not playing a farming sim, this is also a village management sim. Around each village, you will have a plot of land to customize. You can put down farming tiles, buildings, and decorations to spruce up the place. Your bread and butter will be the farm tiles, but unlike previous games, they aren't free. You need to rely on our pal Woolby to make your field tiles and the like, which requires resources such as weeds, wizard grass, and stone. These items aren't as easily found as in previous entries, so it becomes a way to limit how much farmland you can create at the start. Thankfully, as the game progresses, you will begin to have a much easier way to obtain these tiles outside of crafting. So much so that you'll soon have more than you know what to do with. At the outset, I found this change, well, a bit silly. We have this magical hoe to edit the fields, but we have to have something else? Basically, craft the effects of tilling a field? It seemed like an arbitrary way to implement crafting. But honestly, the gripe went away when I realized just how generous the game is with giving you these tiles later on. I can only assume the game wants you to not put all of your eggs in the farming basket as soon as you start the game. As you will soon learn, farming itself is very overpowered once you get things going. Farming itself is very streamlined in this game. You have the option of doing your typical third-person over-the-shoulder farming action, or you can take things from a top-down view to set up your fields and design your village. Doing this allows you to put things down a lot faster too, and with more precision. When you're in this top-down view, you also get access to a new mode exclusive to Switch 2 and PC, Mouse Mode. In Mouse Mode, your fields are shown as a grid, and you can click and drag tiles to change or water them. You'll be setting up and tending to the fields in record time. Speaking of time, while you're in farming mode with the till, time will not progress while in this mode, so you have all the time in the world to make the farm and village of your desires. The next important thing you gotta worry about as village chief is amenities your village provides, and of course housing too. You will need to construct and place different buildings around town for people to live, for your villagers to work, and for your scenic score to go up. The more villagers you bring to your village, the more passive income you can start making, and different buildings and decorations will also provide some nice bonuses too. You will be able to assign villagers to different tasks. These tasks range from working the fields, running shops, and going out and foraging for materials. The villagers working in the fields will always be sure to water, harvest, and plant new seeds, as long as you have the right seeds for that region and workable tiles for them to farm on. So, once you get things set up, you can let your farms run on autopilot when you don't need to focus on leveling up certain crops or growing something specific. Although, you need to have the population to support your field, so the more people you have, the more land they can cover. So, there may be times you'll have to make up the difference, but thanks to the new sacred tools, this also becomes a breeze. All of this helps generate a steady flow of income to your villages, which all go to your coffers, and you'll need that gold as things start getting pretty expensive as you begin to climb the equipment tree. There is a lot to discuss, and I would be here all day if I went over every detail. But to sum it up, all of these experimental changes in how you engage with your farming is very welcomed. It allows you to be in complete control of farming and adjusts around your style of play. The introduction of sacred tools allow you to move around your fields with ease and tend to them, with the combination of villagers working like harvest sprites, creates an ebb and flow to the farming that I found myself really hooked in. Adding to the unlimited time on top of farming, I was able to fine-tune every part of my village to satisfy my brainworms. Characters, the bread and butter of this series. The cast of characters you have across Azuma are all amazing. The pool of marriage candidates is probably the strongest the series has had to offer to date, and Marvelous must know it's so good because you're able to do interdimensional travel and switch between alternate timelines in which you romance other characters. At the time of writing this review, I haven't actually gotten married to any of the characters yet, so I can't show that feature, but it does allow you to experience everyone's particular romance events without having to need to create a new save file for each person, and thank you, Marvelous, it's about time you added something like this, and not that weird divorce mechanic you had in Pioneers of Olive Town. The characters are so interesting and so cool in this game, I want to experience all of their stories without the need for starting over. Also, the way in which you befriend people has also been overhauled as well. In previous games, you had the by the way system to allow you to ask people to journey with you or perform more intimate acts. Here, you get to pick between a pool of different activities of people that each villager will react to differently. This can range from hanging out with them, getting meals together, or cuddling up for a nap together. There is a lot of variety here that's accompanied by a cute animation. The downside, however, is the animation will only play one time, which is a bit sad because some can be a blink and you miss it type deal, and then it will never play again. I get they are assuming people want to save time, but there is a skip button for a reason. This could be a glitch, but I've seen nothing to indicate that is the issue. Maybe in a future update they will allow these scenes to play more than once instead of skipping over them every time. But based on your choices, your friendship meter will go up depending on how they felt about the event. It's nice to get feedback as it happens so you can see how much you have to go to rank them up, and it creates a level of intimacy with the people around you. Phew! This review is coming out much longer than I was anticipating. I'm not sure what the runtime is right now, but I'm sure my video editor making a little quip about it, especially when he finds out I'm probably only 2/3 of the way done with this video as of this point in the script, which is probably a good segue to talk about the game's combat systems. Now onto the combat proper. The combat itself has been refined very well coming off of Rune Factory 5. You once again get your standard action RPG flair as you would in previous games, but movement in combat just feels a lot more fluid than previous entries here. Each weapon feels like a different playstyle and all feel viable in their own right, with their own different combos you can unlock. Personally, I'm a dual blades user through and through, but the talisman system, which replaces magic staves, was a close second for me. The game also adds a better weapon switching aspect where you can go between your standard weapon and a bow. The bow can also be your standard one if you want it to be. The bow allows you to enter into a manual aiming mode, allowing you to land oh so satisfying precise hits on enemies. It can also be a way to cheese certain enemies that may be a bit too strong for you to take head on, too. I wish I had more to say about the combat itself, but it really just serves as a tool to the farming and social aspect of the game, and overall, it's a very good, satisfying, and rewarding action RPG experience. Although the sacred treasures you get from each of the different gods of Azuma all do a nice job of spicing up the flow of combat. Some give you some really good mobility options such as faster run speeds and the ability to glide, and some give you a great way of dealing with large groups of enemies too. There is also a special gauge you build up allowing you to use a powerful special attack that each treasure can use. These attacks range from healing and buffing to doing a ton of elemental damage. Although I will say they do feel a bit too overpowered at times, as once you get a boss into a break state, if you use the right divine dance right after, you can pretty easily eat through almost half of their health. But it is a nice way to see the combat system fleshed out more, and perhaps in a follow-up game it can be rebalanced to make it more fun instead of just, well, dancing your way to victory. Although, that does sound like more fun. The exploration is very much like your standard Rune Factory fare. You will have plenty of large fields to explore with many different monsters and treasures to find. In these areas you will find the field dungeons, which you will be exploring as the story goes on. The fields themselves are pretty basic, but are very pretty to look at and have a nice variety of enemies that populate the area and some cool scenery to explore. There are also plenty of challenges for you to do alongside your adventure, like finding frog statues, clean little shrines, and listen to someone sing about a little onigiri over and over again. But outside of that, this is probably the most core Rune Factory experience you will find in this game, and it does it really well. The fast travel also makes exploring the areas a piece of cake, especially to find certain materials from specific monster drops too. The dungeons themselves, however, well, I think they're the weakest part of this game. Most of them, that is. There are some pretty cool ones you find in the late game, and one neat one that's in the middle, but those are the exception and not the rule. Each dungeon is tied to a seasonal theme, and every time you explore one in a different area, it kinda just feels like one giant dungeon split up into smaller chunks and scattered around the world. Which is a shame because some of them have some really neat puzzles and cool ideas. It's just upsetting that almost none of them are all too memorable. This is probably one of the few aspects of the game I will say Rune Factory 5 has a clear advantage in. What is a bit more memorable though are the floating islands you can explore. This is the first Rune Factory game that really allows you to explore the sky, and you'll be doing so in the back of your trusty friend Wolby. These islands are either provide resources to farm, cool challenges to do, or involved in the main story quest. They go a long way in fleshing up the world of Azuma and makes it feel like a much larger place than what it is. Flying also feels really fluid as well, and there's a nice atmosphere that you get when riding through the skies of Azuma that can be a real vibe sometimes, especially when it's storming. Now for the polarizing part of the game. I, for one, really did enjoy Rune Factory 5 a lot, even the simplification of a lot of the skilling processes and crafting part of the game. Guardians of Azuma seemed to refine and double down on this, removing the entire traditional skill level up system and replacing it with skill trees, giving it a much more streamlined and simplified approach. As you do different things, you will earn EXP in different skills, which can be used to upgrade new things on the skill tree, and each node will tell you exactly what buffs you get for unlocking that part of the skill tree. While it's not the same dopamine hit as leveling up skills seemingly randomly, I much prefer knowing what I get from leveling up things each time. Crafting is also relegated to the shops you placed around town. You will need to construct blacksmiths, restaurants, and chemists if you want to create certain weapons and items, all of which have been much more streamlined from previous entries. I do know some people aren't fans of it, but again, I do welcome simplicity of it. While it does remove some depth from the older games, it allows me to focus on more things that I personally care about. The final thing I want to talk about is the game's presentation. As mentioned earlier in the review, I am playing this game on PC, running at 1440p and 120 FPS. Any higher of a frame rate, you start running into some issues that will be addressed in a day one patch. And from what I am aware of the Switch 2 performance, this game will be comparable at 60 FPS. But this game looks amazing. I really do like the cel-shaded look and feel everything has with this game. Things really do stand out with the art direction, and it really is just a treat to look at. The game does a cool thing where things in the background have this watercolor drawing-like effect until you approach them. The monster designs are really cool, and the characters are all full of life and are so very expressive. I played with the English dub, and every voice actor understood the assignment of their role and helped bring together such an amazing package. An especially huge shout out to Mark Whitten's performance as Wolby. He really put his soul into this role and is the standout performance of this game.
Excuse me? I'll have you know that I am a dragon, a descendant of the Mihoshi Habaki.
And don't get me started on the cutscenes. Each one just feels like there was a huge budget behind each one and do a good job at telling the story. The presentation of this game is such a cool way to wrap things up nicely with a bow that truly delivered on a memorable experience for me. The soundtrack for this game, however, was on the interesting side. The music a lot of the time felt a bit basic, like your seasonal themes felt appropriate for each area and are serviceable for the farming that you'll be doing. But the standout tracks are from both the dungeons and the music that plays during cutscenes. They both gave me vibes of playing an SMT game or a Falcom game, which is always appreciated. I just wish there were more standout music tracks like that, but overall the OST is very serviceable with a few bangers in between. When I first saw Guardians of Azuma, I will admit I was very skeptical about what was being presented to me, and was feeling like I could write this game off as just a spin-off title to wait for Rune Factory 6. Now I see the error of my ways. Guardians of Azuma is as much as a full-fledged mainline Rune Factory title as any before and after it. If you told me this was Rune Factory 6, I would believe you. This game has me excited for the future of the Rune Factory series since Marvelous now has 2 development teams working on the franchise, Hakama and now Marvelous First Studios of this one. You know, the people who made Daemon X Machina. The branch of this franchise feels like it will open itself up to a lot of experimentation that I hope can make its way over into the mainline branch of the series. If you are a fan of Story of Seasons, or Rune Factory, or life sims, farming sims, JRPGs in general, this game is a 100% pickup for sure. If you're looking for a Switch 2 launch title, this is probably the standout game you'll want to play. I am currently nearing over 100 hours into this game, and I still have much more that I want to do. Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma is easily a contender for Game of the Year and should not be slept on. Phew. Alright, first review in a while, and a first major video since my surgery late last year. And I came in hot with Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. Let me know if you have any questions about the game in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you on this one. Now that I have this game done and dusted, I will now return back to work on my Harvest Moon 64 video while I await Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar. Also, if you want to hear a more in-depth and spoilery thoughts on this game, me and friend of the channel Neurosis will be doing a deep dive discussion on our time with the game after launch, so be on the lookout for that. And if you're new to my channel, finding me out for the first time through this review, hey, be sure to subscribe for future reviews, commentaries, and more. And as always everyone, thanks for watching.